I've spent over $400 on keyboards, and I blame my friend. You see, one day we were just in a VC, and like, I could hear every single sound of his keyboard. Like, I could hear the spacebar ticking, I could hear like the scratchiness of the switches. And this is all because he didn't have his noise suppression on like he usually does. And that experience really made me value noise suppression. But it also made me value my keyboard. Like, I love my keyboard. It might be a little bit loud for some people's taste, but I love it. And I wanted my friend to love his keyboard as well, because, I mean, who could actually be happy with, like, a keyboard that sounded so bad I could tell over Discord call that it was bad? Well, apparently he did, because he didn't know it was that bad. But I told him it was bad, so I told him he needed to mod it. And he liked the idea of modding it, but he was already saving his money for something else, so I decided to take it upon myself to mod it for him. So I went and asked him what switches he liked, and he told me Holy Pandas. And I told him no, because I'm building him a keyboard, and I'm not going to be paying for Holy Pandas. They're just stupidly expensive. So I managed to talk him down to some Akko switches, and some like nice crystal clear keycaps. Like, they are nice. And they're not like typical pudding keycaps. Like, these things are crystal clear, which is very unique. And while I had this great plan for building this keyboard, I decided to ask him the most important question. What kind of keyboard do you have? This ended up being a very good question to ask, because he had a Ducky 1-2 Mini. And if you don't know anything about keyboards, a Ducky 1-2 Mini is a very popular keyboard, yes, but it's also soldered. And that means to change the switches, you would have to desolder every single switch. And I knew my friend. I knew he didn't know how to desolder. He was never going to be able to replace the switches again. So that was a pretty big issue, but I didn't tell him because I actually had a better idea. Instead of just modding his keyboard for him, I was going to like make an entirely new keyboard for him with a new Ducky 1-3 Mini. You see, at the time, the Ducky 1-3 Mini had just been released, and it had been, okay. You see, at the time, the Ducky 1-3 Mini had just been released, and it had been taking the keyboard community by storm. Like, every single YouTube video I saw was pretty much just about the Ducky 1-3 Mini. And like, I heard great things about it, but I wanted to put it to the test, and I didn't have any good justification to buy one until that point, so I got one. Now, an issue with the Ducky 1-3 Mini, while it is hot swappable, so I can change out the switches really easily, it sorta only came in 2 colorways, and neither of those are white. My friend specifically specified that he wanted a white keyboard, because his entire setup's white, so I get that. But the only 2 colorways it came in at the time, it was not white, and again, was not white. So what does a budding keyboard enthusiast do? Well, he just repaints the keyboard to make it white. And when I say I repainted the keyboard, I'm not talking like, oh, I put a coat of spray paint on. No, I literally sanded the thing down. I put primer on, I then spray painted it, and I finished it off with a coat of clear coat. So I basically refinished the entire keyboard. And after lubing the switches and tuning the stabilizers, I was ready to give it to my friend. I was excited. Like, I was really hoping he would like the keyboard, and he did. He was also very surprised because, again, I didn't tell him that I was making a keyboard for him. And I think I might be the first person to have a white Ducky 1-3 Mini. I don't think anyone besides me was crazy enough to buy a 1-3 Mini and repaint it white instead of just waiting a few months, because they are actually available now, just in pure white, I think. Now, I can tell you one thing, my friend was sure shocked to get a new keyboard. Like, he was expecting to get some like new switches and stuff, but he was shocked to get a new keyboard. And I know he's really enjoyed it since, and he's actually told me like people that have come over to his house have like complimented his keyboard because it's just so good. So I think I'm going to call that a win in my books. Oh, thank you, Minecraft. Now, it's kind of bittersweet giving the keyboard to my friend because his reaction was priceless, but at the same time, I loved the way it sounded, and it's just such a clean keyboard. It kind of made me want one of my own. And since my friend had a Ducky 1-2 Mini, which I knew he was never going to touch again, I might have asked if I could have had that. And wouldn't you know, he gave it to me for free because I might have just given him a free keyboard myself. So, fair trade on my part. Now, as I've mentioned, the Ducky 1-2 Mini, it has its issues. You know, it's a soldered keyboard, and he might have spilled some nail polish remover on it, so it was kind of green looking. But I was up for the challenge, or at least that's what I thought before I tried desoldering it. See, the first time I tried desoldering it, I thought I was doing pretty well. Like, it seemed like I got most of the switches out, and even if there was some stuck in there, I kind of expected that. But when I tried removing the switches, only about half of them came out, so I was a little disappointed in myself. But you know, it was my first time trying to desolder. I thought like, okay, I'll just give it another shot, and I did, and another 50% of the switches came out, and I tried it again, another 50% of the switches came out. I think you're seeing a pattern here. I did that like 5 times to the point where I was left with like 8 switches stuck in the keyboard that I just could not desolder for the life of me. And so I did what any keyboard professional would have done. I yanked them out of the keyboard as hard as I could because I was sick of trying to desolder them, which ended up being a really bad idea. You see, in the process of doing that, I kind of ruined the PCB, which meant I had to buy a new one, which meant I basically, instead of getting a free keyboard, I got a $46 keyboard because that's how much the new PCB costs. And on the topic of price, I think I ended up spending about $200, which is the same amount I spent on the keyboard I made for my friend on the free keyboard I got. Don't ask me how I did that, but I did. Like, I got the same switches and the same keycaps, and I still came out to roughly the same price even with a free keyboard. But not gonna lie, I think it was well worth it because, like, I'm loving this new 60% Ducky 1-2 Mini. I never thought I would like a 60% keyboard because it doesn't have enough buttons, but it just works for me. Like, before I thought TKL was like the perfect size for me, but no, it's too much. It's too much. So what's the moral of the story here? Don't buy a soldered keyboard and don't get addicted to keyboards so you spend $400 like I did.
God damn it. This keyboard is valid.